Hi, my name is Julián Mesri. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a DGF musical theater fellow. I think that in terms of being a theater writer, I kind of was part of it with my family. So my mother, Susanna Cook, is like a downtown theater artist. She does performance art and plays in like Wow Cafe and Dixon Place and PS 122 like in the 90s, and continues to do so. And I remember that I had taken a Shakespeare book. It was like a complete works of William Shakespeare in Spanish, and I was just going through it, and I remember the part with Cleopatra getting killed by the asp, and I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 years old, and I thought this was kind of cool. And then my mom was like, you shouldn't be reading that, read this. And she throws at me, not throws, like hands me like Galileo by Brecht, Godot by Beckett, and like Rhinoceros by UNESCO. And again, 10-year-old me reading through these and just getting into this crazy language and ways of telling stories. And I think that's really where it started in terms of just thinking of writing, and writing being this kind of wild place of expression, and particular theater writing. It's just kind of having those absurdist theater voices in my head, in my psyche at this point, haunting me. In terms of writing musicals, that's a newer thing in my life. I always had my writing world, and then I had my music world. I started doing piano lessons when I was 7, and I remember telling my teacher at one point, we keep learning all these people's music, can I write my own? Like, asking permission, and she was like, absolutely. My first piano teacher's name was Alice Finger, which I think is a perfect name for a first piano teacher. And then so I wrote lots of music, and especially in high school I had a rock band. We were called Blue Velvet. We played all around New York. We played CBGBs, and like my rock music career and like my theater career were very different. And I went to college, and the band kind of stopped working together. And when I came back, I started thinking about, well, I've got like all this music I've been writing, and then all these plays I've been writing. Let's try putting them together. And I gave myself, I was part of this thing called Brooklyn Generator, and they were like, you have a month to write a play, and I was like, it'll be a musical. And so I wrote a very weird nativity musical called Bethlehem, and that was like the first musical I wrote, and I was like, you know what, actually I think this works, let's put both of these worlds together. I was lucky enough to go and get a grant when I was in undergrad to go to Berlin and see theater, and this was back when I really wanted to be a theater director, and I was really inspired by the work I saw there. I saw, Frank Castorf do absolutely insane versions of like Brecht and Genet. But speaking of a huge influence for me, definitely Jean Genet, who I came to a little bit later after I'd been reading UNESCO and Brecht and all those guys. And like the work of Genet just kind of taking language to its extremes and looking at sort of the performativity of authority and history, that really started to inspire me. And then my huge influences really started when I went back to Argentina to participate in something called Panorama Sur. And Panorama Sur was this incredible collection of just playwrights from all over the Americas. So we had people from Cuba, people from Bolivia, from Peru, from Mexico. I was the US part of that. We had people from Argentina, from Uruguay, from Chile. And they were all there to bring their work. It was led by this man named Alejandro Tantanian, who's an amazing playwright and director in Buenos Aires. And we were there to write a new show and see theater. So we'd see theater every night. Buenos Aires is one of those theater capitals where there's just theater all the time. And the shows I saw there was this one show called Estado de Ira, which is a version of Hedda Gabler, which is a rehearsal of basically the dress rehearsal the day that Hedda Gabler is about to go up in this like small community theater outside of Buenos Aires, and they just replaced the actor. And so you're just watching them rehearse this new actor through all the lines, and just it was so alive and present, and it just made me really inspired in terms of what theater is capable of, and how theater is this kind of very unique place of presence, and So the work I've been developing as a fellow is a piece called 300 Million, and it's about Malena, a domestic worker in a kind of middle of the road luxury inn about 10 miles from Poughkeepsie, who is basically deceived by a very bored guardian angel that she has inherited $300 million. And it becomes this sort of fable of immigrant wealth, in particular Latina immigrant wealth, something that's very close to me, having grown up the child of two immigrants. You know, I came to the United States when I was 4 years old from Argentina, and so this idea of how America is seen is very inspirational to me. And so it explores that story basically by having this hotel room that sort of shifts and changes to the dictates of her fantasy. Basically, this angel kind of deceives her. And it's inspired by this Argentine play by Robert Arlt called 300 Million, about a domestic worker who kind of gets deceived at the 300 million, but I've sort of shifted it to talk about the immigrant experience here. The musical style that I'm really inspired by is folklore, because the character Malena, she's from the south of Argentina, so we're using a lot of different rhythms like sambas and chacareras, as well as sort of the light pop of like the hotel room world to tell the story. When I first started writing, I always started to think, oh, I need like this mystical spirit to come and guide me, and so I had to set up everything, make sure it was perfect. And what I quickly realized is like it's totally fine to like write crap. And so when I have writer's block and I can't write, I'm like, well, you're just gonna have to write. And as you're writing, the entire time your brain is going, this is crap, what are you doing? This is awful, why are you doing this? And then you finish, and then you read it, and you're like, maybe a lot of it is bad, but then you find ideas, and you're like, oh wait, I guess there were some things in here. And so, you know, there's never any kind of writing that isn't productive in some way, right? If you write something, you're gonna have something you've written, and then you can always edit it. It's not like you have to then hand it in and it's never gonna be seen again. And I think knowing that you can always edit it and you can always go back and you can always just delete it. You know, with a lot of my musicals, you write the whole musical and then you might have to just rewrite the whole thing from scratch. And that happened to me a couple of times. So, you know, that's part of the joy of that.